For me, a wedding has a specific formula and everybody is sort of like putting their own touch on it. But I mean, I just love watching, something from the very beginning and then come to fruition. So seeing like the execution, and I love the logistics of it. Like I know, hey, we started out with this and now it's become it's become this very large thing. Even if it's a small wedding for 25 people, it's still a very large thing. And of course you're not spending this amount of money, on one day in anything else that you do in your entire life. Like I even tell couples all the time, I'm like, you don't spend the amount of money that you spend on a wedding day in one day in 8-ish hours, you will spend less money when you're closing on a home, and that's something that you're gonna live in for 30 something years. But I mean, for me, it's just more of like starting out with, just an idea. The couple coming to me and saying like, I really love Cirque du Soleil. And without making it feel like a bar mitzvah or making it feel like a sweet 16 and making it feel like a cheesy thing, is like to try to find a way to delicately include what their vision is and just make it into something that every person can enjoy. So I like sort of like putting those puzzle pieces together, and that's what I enjoy like the most of it. Come the wedding day, like I listen to the ceremony. I like to hear about the couple in a different perspective. But for me, I'm like, it's just the ceremony. It's the half hour before we get to see what the next step is going to come, and I want to watch those people come in and be wowed by it, or just like be sort of like the fly on the wall that's hearing people walk in and give feedback to each other, like, oh, I really like these flowers, or oh, this menu looks really nice, or I like to see when those little pieces come together and they're appreciated.
Wedding Professionals Uncensored. Orange Film's original series.
Christine Viola from Exquisite Affairs Productions. Started in 2006, so I've been doing this close to 11 years, and I fell into this after planning my own wedding. I know how cheesy that sounds, but a few of my girlfriends encouraged me to look into doing this as a full-time profession, and I was working in finance at the time, credit portfolio trading, and they said, you know what, like, you're good, you have a business background, try planning events because you always plan our events, try doing this. So I started the company, and 6 months into it, it developed into this company that I didn't even think was even going to be a possibility, and I left finance and never looked back. And now this is what I do, full-time, all the time. My major was computer information systems at Baruch.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought I wanted to be that person that developed, programs like trading platforms.
Yeah.
And then ended up falling into credit portfolio and credit management. And my computer skills help me every single day. My tech background. And honestly, like, my business background and finance background is what keeps me, I think it gives me an advantage and an edge to other planners, because I'm so sensitive about a budget. And I understand money, and I understand budgets, and I understand, what market prices are and how to compare different vendors. I know where, I basically can understand pretty quickly, like, where the bottom line is for, like a venue. Like if I know that they have to get to this specific number, I know what's gonna make them happy, and I know what the clients, how the client's gonna be happy, and it's just basically manipulating the numbers in a specific way and understanding it. So, I mean, I think this was just the path that I had to take in order to get here, but I use it every single day, and I don't regret, like, not having that background. I would love to, but you know what the thing is that, like, it's so, I've tried different platforms that are out there, like planner guides and things like that, or a planner app. It does exist. There's a lot of, like, the Knot has one, and they give you, like, a planning timeline, and it gives you reminders, and it gives you, like, a budget and things like that, which is basically what I do and what I can cater to. But the biggest problem is that it's not personalized, and there is not a single wedding and a single client that, like, it's always going to fit that exact mold. And that's, like, the biggest thing. It's impossible to do. Like, there's no, like, type of, like, metric that you can run that's going to personalize every single wedding, so that it's like, the personal aspect of wedding planning can never be, taken away. Like, you have simple books and things like that, or blogs that you read from like just going out researching. You can definitely do a wedding without a wedding planner. Are you gonna save as much money? Probably not, and it just comes down to like being able to like have a person that's able to match the client up to like the right vendor. I might go in and say like, okay, you want a videographer and this is what your budget is, whether I set the budget or whether they're telling me what their video budget is. But I'm the one that's gonna know like whether this bride and groom or this this client and couple is gonna be able to tolerate this videographer for 8 hours that day. You're like a photographer, a videographer, you're spending 8, 9, 10 hours, 12 hours with the client. Maybe my bride doesn't like, having a male videographer. Maybe they are the type of person that need a female videographer because they're gonna be a little bit more comfortable. So I feel like that's my biggest, it's almost like I'm the matchmaker to find the couple, to find them to the right vendors. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the, the price or the style, but it has everything to do with the personalities coming together. I think a couple needs a planner to keep them on track, and I'm the type of person that I will tell couples I can be your worst nightmare or I could be your best friend. I could be your best friend and then I'm able to understand what your needs are and obviously make sure that all your expectations are being met, but I could be your worst nightmare in that like you're not doing what I'm asking you to do in order to continue the planning. So if I tell you like, hey, these are some people that you should be looking at for your photographer, if 2 weeks go by and I realize that you haven't done anything, I'm the one that has to put a little bit of fire under your booty and say like, listen, this is something that's gonna book up quickly, like we need to do this. Are you struggling, and looking in the portfolios? Are you overwhelmed or are you just busy with work? What's the reason and that you're not able to do this? Because I can walk away and I can say like, this is the photographer you need to work with, this is the band, this is da-da-da-da, and go right down the line and just almost sort of like create a checklist. But why do you want to go to a wedding as a guest or as a client? Like, why do you want to be the couple that like just walks into this wedding without having any personalization to it or any involvement in it? So I think anyone needs a planner just to keep them on track and to keep them on budget, but most importantly, like to have a safe space. My couple can come to me and my brides might come to me and say, I really have a terrible relationship with my mom, but it is my mom. So what do I do? So I'm able to sort of give them the advice, based on experience and just based on regular everyday life, to just say like, this is what we're gonna do. This is how I'm going to help you so that you cannot be, stressed out on your wedding day. I think that's like the most important thing, is managing those expectations, having a planner that almost becomes, and it sounds completely cheesy, like your closest friend. But I have a very intimate relationship with my clients because I'm seeing the good, bad, the ugly. And that might necessarily not come from them, but it might come from their bridal party, or it might come from their siblings or their parents, or their future mother-in-law, is just someone that's really difficult and they don't have the best relationship with them. I have to be able to make sure that like I can make the mother-in-law happy, I can make the bride and groom happy. I just want everyone to be happy and not be stressed out on the day of the wedding. And that's my biggest job, is managing those personalities more than anything else. The weather. Dealing with the weather. And it's funny because every couple, we live in New York. We don't know what the weather is going to be. It can change minute by minute. But I'm the one that's stressed out about it. The week of, I'm telling all my couples not to watch the weather forecast, but I'm sitting there watching it. And it's just because people get so consumed by the weather and they feel like their wedding is gonna be a disaster, or things are gonna run late, or they're gonna be wet, or they can't do their pictures outside, or whatever it may be. And it's just the one thing that you can't control, and I can't control anything about it, because I know from the beginning we have a plan A and we have a plan B, and like our plan B is what happens if it rains, and we always talk about it and then we never bring it up again until we need to, because I know it's such a stress factor. But I mean, like, the weather is something that I can't control, but knowing that my clients are obsessed over it and they're gonna be upset is the hardest thing to deal with, and I actually hate it. I hate having the weather talk with them, and I hate when it's a crappy day, especially this year where it pretty much rained every single Saturday since April, but you have to deal with it. I honestly think the most stressful situation when I'm dealing with vendors that I don't know, and I know everybody has to start somewhere, and there's going to be a point where, you know, it's going to be our first time meeting. I think the biggest thing is probably not addressing, if I send you a timeline and I ask you to confirm, I expect that you'll look at the timeline at some point, and then, you know, I'll give you an example. There's nothing worse than if I allocate an hour for bride and groom portraits and a photographer comes to me and says, you know, hey, like, I need 2 hours. That's great. I'll go back, I'll amend my timeline, I'll resend it, I'll make sure everybody's on the same page. If you know that you need 2 hours to do something, I'm happy to give it to you as long as you tell me. What I don't like is on the day of the wedding, if you show up and you tell me like, you know, this isn't enough time. For me, that is something that's basically like, I know that it's a downward spiral and I know that everything else is gonna be run because transportation is affected by it, hair and makeup is affected by it. Like, you know, the time that like we need to get over to the venue. Everything is so related to that time that if you're not honest with me and you don't tell me in advance, that's probably like the worst thing any vendor can do to me. You know, otherwise, like, you know, I know things can happen, like a vendor can show up late. Communicate with me, don't communicate with a couple. So yeah, so not telling me in advance or communicating with me in advance. And I probably think the next thing is if you know that there's a wedding planner there or a coordinator that's there the day of, I feel like a vendor should be going to that person and not going to the bride and groom. I mean, there's been times where I've had, you know, like, I'll use the photographer as an example. The photographer would go to the bride and groom and ask like about the schedule or ask about like transportation. And I just feel like it's something that the bride and groom don't have to be bothered with, and they can just come to me and ask me, and like we're all on the same team. So why is it that you're not utilizing me? And why do you feel like you either need to go past me because you don't trust me, because you don't know me, or because you just feel like dealing with the bride and groom? There's been situations where I've sat down with a prospective client and they're not even booked with me. And if they tell me, hey, I'm looking at this person, if I've had a really bad experience with them, I tell them from the get-go. And that might mean that like, I don't get the job, but that's okay to me because would rather have been able to sit there and be honest and tell them why it was a bad experience, you know, and for me, that was worth it. So I am very honest, I'm very open, whether you're booked with me or whether you're not, or you're not booked with me, but I'll be the first one to say like, listen, I did not like this photographer because of this, this, and this. And usually it's because, you know, whether their delivery time, you know, is longer than their contract time. But, you know, if a photographer says like, hey, it's gonna take 4 months to deliver your images and it's something that takes 8 months and now we have to get a lawyer involved, I'm going to tell a client about that. If it's about their behavior on the day of the wedding or their appearance, you know, their appearance/behavior, like the day of, they were unprofessional, you know, I'll be the first one to do that. You know, and a lot of the times, like the reason why I won't like a vendor is because of my actual experience with them or the experience that my clients have. I've worked with some of the greatest vendors from a vendor perspective. I thought the photographer was fantastic. We communicated, we listened, but my client wasn't happy. So if my client comes back to me and says like, I don't like my pictures, I know that's really subjective, but if they come back to me and they say like they were inappropriate or they did this, that, or the other thing, I'm gonna, you know, make a mental note of it and I'm going to bring that up for my client. Like, I feel like that's why I'm there, is to sort of like give them the behind the scenes and tell them the honest truth, because who else is going to tell you?
Wedding Professionals Uncensored. Orange Films original series. Subscribe, share, spread the word.